Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at my Nintendo DS collection. Now, the Nintendo DS is the machine, along with the PSP, that kind of solidified my absolute infatuation with handheld gaming. I look at it just in the highest regard as console gaming these days. I would be lost without handheld gaming and the variety of RPGs and point and click and action adventure games, side scrollers that are offered on these machines. I absolutely love the DS. Started off a little strange. I didn't quite know what to do with the dual screens and the touchscreen, but it didn't take long for this machine to really blossom, if you will, come into its own and provide some amazing gameplay experiences that I'm truly grateful for. The DS is a must-own for handheld gaming fans or for Nintendo fans or anybody looking for some kind of outside-of-the-box thinking style games. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, starting things off, I'm going to have to move relatively quickly through these games due to the fact I've got upwards of 100 DS games over there, and I don't want to take up too much of your time or make this too long. But I didn't pick up a DS right away. Some of the early touchscreen games and ports didn't interest me. They didn't know what to do with the dual screens right away, and the touchscreen was relatively new technology for back in 2004. But when Dawn of Sorrow hit, I knew I had to have this machine, mainly due to the fact at how much I enjoyed the original trilogy on the Game Boy Advance. Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow were amazing games, and these three here are just as amazing, if not better. Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia are some of my favorite Castlevania games in the entire series. Something about these on a handheld with the second screen being used as the map, I thought it was very intuitive. The first game kind of had some strange magic use of the touchscreen, chipping away ice blocks and such and drawing runes, but for the most part these games were close to 2D perfection. Huge maps, brilliant graphics and gameplay, exquisite music. I absolutely love this series, and these are reason enough to own a DS all by themselves. If you're a fan of Mega Man, you're going to love the DS. This is the Mega Man Zero collection, and what this was a collection of all the Game Boy Advance games, Mega Man Zero 1 through 4, all here in one package, with easy difficulty mode added, which is kind of handy because the Zero games are known for their brutal difficulty, fantastic side scrollers near the top of the class, and we have my personal favorite, the ZX games. ZX and ZX Advent are Mega Man games through and through, but they just have such good production value on the DS. They've got amazing cinemas and voice work, some really cool transformations, all kinds of cool different robots. If you're a fan of shooters, there's definitely something for you on the DS. Here we got a couple of run and gun games. This is Contra 4 and Metal Slug 7. Now Contra 4 is one for me that is probably my favorite in the Contra series. A bold statement, but true. I think the graphics in this, the animations, the use of the dual screens to create one long display, just everything in this game comes together with the difficulty being just right. It provides a great challenge, and I think this is a game updated, done right. Amazing concept that is just made perfect in this game. Contra is a classic series, and Contra 4 is up to the top. Metal Slug 7 was exclusive at the time to the DS, and this is kind of like Contra, but a more humorous take on the run and gun formula. Once again, animation is top notch, very humorous, and I really enjoyed the different playable characters in this and all the different vehicles you could hop in and out of. Sprite work is second to none. Metal Slug 7 is great. And then if you're a fan of like shoot 'em ups, you've got some great games here to choose. Nano Stray 1 and 2. Nano Stray, the first one, was kind of light on content. It didn't have a whole lot of levels, and you could beat it relatively quickly. The challenge was still very high, and the second one kind of took the top-down formula of the first one and added in side-scrolling stages, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. Touchscreen weapon switching worked very well for the first one. The second one is great as well. Shooters, you can't go wrong on the DS with either of the Nano Stray games. Next up, we got a couple of games that, upon first glance, don't have anything in common at all, but in closer inspection, they're both Metroidvania-style games. Monster Tale is one that came out of nowhere for me, completely surprised me with its great graphics, excellent level design, great boss battles. I thought it might be too kiddish or too girly, but man, this game has it all. Fantastic exploration, unlocking new abilities and opening up more of the map as you gain new abilities. It's got some Pokemon elements where you have a monster and you can like feed him and give him trinkets on the bottom screen. He's going to level up and grow stronger and help you throughout the levels. Just an amazing game, and a lot of people are coming around just how great Monster Tale is. Alien Infestation is a classic example of how to use a license properly. This nails the atmosphere of the film. It's very isolated and dark, and it can be scary at times too. The gameplay is top notch. If you die, you lose a Marine, he dies for good, so it's going to keep you on the edge of your toes. Just a game done right in the Alien universe and license, thankfully. If you're a fan of handheld horror games, the DS has definitely got something for you. The excellent Dementium games from Renegade Kid. Now, Renegade Kid is a studio that completely takes advantage of the DS in terms of its processing power and able to harness the power that the system has. These games both run very smooth. I believe 60 frames per second, but they just look amazing for the DS. Great sound effects, immersion, very scary and atmospheric. These are great games, and Renegade Kid really knows how to use the DS properly. A port of Resident Evil with some extras in the way of like a first-person knifing game. You use a touchscreen. You know, I thought it might be gimmicky and tacked on, but it actually was pretty fun. This is a great, perfect port of the original PlayStation game in the palm of your hand. And then we've got Little Red Riding Hood's Zombie Barbecue. Big, beautifully animated textures in this. The zombies are really cool looking. They lumber towards you, you shoot them, you can move from different planes on the screen and shoot in different directions. A top-down shooter at its core. Another great use of the license, man. This could have been like really not good, but it turned out so well. Charming visual style, good challenge. Absolutely love Zombie Barbecue. Another license that turned out well, Thor. Way Forward is another company that knows how to do sprite work amazingly well in the DS, and this is no exception. A dual-screened beat-em-up where you're going to be fighting huge bosses that take up both screens. A great combat system. I kind of wrote this off as like movie games, let's be honest, they mostly suck, but this was done right. Next we have Tokyo Beatdown, and man, I'm such a big fan of beat-em-ups, but what makes this go above and beyond is not the combat system, because it's fairly generic in this game. You don't learn new moves or upgrades or abilities. Other than collecting scrolls, it extends the length of your combos, and you're able to do more as the game goes on. But Lewis Cannon, who is the guy that stars in this game, is a cop, and he is just the coolest guy, man. He says what he thinks, he takes the law into his own hands, and you're going to laugh out loud at some of the stuff that this guy says to these criminals as he's beating the hell out of them. An amazingly fun beat-em-up, and I just love this game to death. Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword was something I was very worried about. I was a big fan of the Ninja Gaiden games at this point in time, and when they were going to release this, you hold the DS sideways like a book and use the stylus completely to do combat. I was like really worried that it wouldn't work, because Ninja Gaiden has those intricate combos and it's all about the combat. But you know what? I stand corrected, because using the stylus is a lot of fun. It somehow works very well, and it's a fantastic looking game. Just brilliant graphics. And overall, the stylus really does do a great job of the combat. This is a lot of fun. Lunar Nights, and this is a follow-up to the Boktai games. They used a very odd sun-sensing cartridge that's sometimes limited, well, not sometimes, all the time. If you didn't have sun outside and it required it in the game, you weren't going to progress, and it was very restricting and limiting. A great idea in theory, but just not very practical. Hunting vampires, pulling them out, and banishing them in the sunlight. It was cool when you had sunlight, and there wasn't really a way to trick it, to my knowledge. I tried lamps and everything, never worked, but Lunar Nights is a continuation of that series, thankfully, with the sun and moon cycle on the top screen of the DS, so you don't have to worry about the sunlight. But this is Kojima. He does the story masterfully. It's told very well, and I really enjoyed this action RPG. If you're a fan of first-person handheld RPGs, the DS has definitely got you covered. The first one being Deep Labyrinth, and I believe this was a collection of like Japanese cell phone games that were updated for the DS, 2 games in 1, and I really enjoyed the first game that I played. I didn't finish both of them, but the first one had a really kind of strong emotional story. The gameplay wasn't the best. It was kind of sloppily handled with the stylus, doing spells and such, but the combat, the core combat was okay, slashing with the stylus. But overall, I enjoyed the music, and I thought it was really cool. This one right here, the title is a mouthful. Fighting Fantasy, the Warlock of something Firetop Mountain. Some crazy long title, but if you're looking for like a Skyrim type game on the DS, or as close as it's going to get, take a look at this one. And it's amazingly detailed graphics, and it's just so ambitious that it's definitely worth a look. I was surprised that they were able to pull off what they did on this game. The next couple of games, Orcs and Elves, is from the creators of Doom RPG, which I never even knew there was a Doom RPG. I think I maybe heard about it or something, but this is kind of one of those old school first-person games where you take one step, the enemy takes a step closer. Combat works really well in this. Very satisfying to hack and slash and kill enemies, and the puzzles weren't too bad. I actually really enjoyed what I've played of this so far. I'm about 5 or 6 hours in. A really good first-person RPG. This one, Mazes of Fate, I just picked this up recently, so I haven't had much time to put into this, but on the back it looks pretty ambitious and pretty epic, so I'm looking forward to getting into this one once I finish these two monsters. But great first-person RPGs in the DS. Next up, we've got the Lost in Blues series of games, and the first thing you're going to need before you start this series or attempt to play any of the games is a good deal of patience. Now, these games are enjoyable, and there is a lot of fun to be had. It's just the first game was plagued with a lot of hand-holding and babysitting and taking care of this female companion that's also trapped on this island. But underneath that, some tedium and frustration, there's a really fun game that makes excellent use of the DS bottom screen, touchscreen for like whittling sticks, starting fires, fishing, hunting, trapping, things of that nature. Lots of cool mini games, and the games definitely got more ambitious as they went on. But it definitely takes a certain kind of gamer to enjoy this. They're slower paced and a lot of stat tracking and hand holding, unfortunately. But concept-wise, nothing else like them and anything else. I believe this is like Survival Kids was the original name of the games on the Game Boy Color, I think. But really cool concept. I apologize for this clustered, haphazardly placed pile of games here, but I have covered both of these series in a previous episode. I believe it was underrated game genre, something of that nature, where I talked about point-and-click series that I absolutely adore. These are two of them, the Ace Attorney games and Professor Layton. Professor Layton is for fans of graphic novel, point-and-click, puzzle-solving style games. These I didn't think would be for me at first, because I'm not like a huge puzzle-solving game fan. But the way the puzzles are integrated into the storyline and progression, mixed with the charming visuals, great voice acting and storytelling, I absolutely fell in love with this series. A lot of fun solving these brain teasers, and there's clues and hints so you're not pulling your hair out. Tons of fun. The Ace Attorney series is one of the most charming, well-written game series I've ever played in any system. Once again, a lot of reading, but if you enjoy courtroom antics, questioning witnesses, finding the holes in their testimony, because these guys are all going to be lying, it's up to you to present clues, facts, and just have a lot of fun with the insanity of some of the witnesses on the stand. Amazing games. The last one here, Miles Edgeworth, is kind of a more of a third-person exploration, exploring crime scenes. It takes it out of the courtroom, but all are just amazing games. These are two series that are must-owns. Touch Detective games are more along the lines of Ace Attorney mixed with like Tim Burton style filming. It's got that vibe to it, a very dark look, and it's not so much courtroom, it's more gathering evidence and cracking cases that are individual based. In this strange world, anything is possible. Different combinations with different items. Mackenzie herself is a really cool, like, detective sleuth in training. So just think Ace Attorney out of the courtroom with a real Tim Burton Corpse Bride look and feel to it. Really creative. I really enjoyed these ones. Next up, we've got a couple of mature rated games on the DS. Teresia, very atmospheric, slow paced. Very vague in all of its descriptions and what exactly you're supposed to be doing. I had a hard time figuring out just how to play this game well, but it's very dark and atmospheric, and something keeps you coming back for more. 999 is a true masterpiece, the start of the Zero Escape series. It's kind of like Saw mixed with the video game. You are kidnapped and you wake up in this sinking ship, and you must puzzle solve your way out of these like near-death scenarios, and it's just so intense and very well written. The characters are all really cool, and you get to know them, and your chances for survival are very slim, and you're playing your way out as the time is running out. This has spawned a very successful series. Got a new one coming out soon. 999 is the birth of it all. One of the best games in the DS. Just amazingly intense. Touch the Dead. Think House of the Dead light gun shooting game. Take the light gun, replace it with the stylus, and you pretty much got what to expect from Touch the Dead. It's rough around the edges, but I think the light gun concept works pretty well on the DS, using the stylus as your light gun. It's pretty fun. Some more case solving, point and click style action. This is Jake Hunter, Detective Chronicles Memories from the Past, and this is a very rare instance where a game had a re-release. The original Jake Hunter was released with a lot of problems, a lot of bugs and English oddities, and a totally uneven script. This fixes all those problems, and Jake Hunter is a chain-smoking, like trench coat wearing, complete badass of a detective. I thought the stories in this were very well written. There's tons of content, lots of side stuff added for this version. So if you get Jake Hunter, make sure it's Memories from the Past. This is a great game. Time Hollow from Konami is another brilliant game in the point-and-click style. This has you solving a very strange occurrence where you wake up and your parents are gone and everything has changed overnight. You use this time pen to kind of draw circles and go back in time and rewrite this story that is seeing your parents disappear and you lived with an uncle all along instead of being raised by your parents. A really cool parallel universe storyline, some great production values, cinemas and stuff. I really enjoyed this game. A bit of trial and error and some difficult puzzles, but overall a great game. Next up, we have a collection of games from one of my favorite developers back on the DS. Sadly, they're no longer with us, closed down due to bankruptcy a few years back. Trace Memory was one of the standout early DS games for me personally. It used every aspect of the system. Its dual screens, microphone, touchscreen for a murder mystery set on Blood Edward Island that captivated me from start to finish. Hotel Dusk was another one of those games that had you holding the DS sideways like a book, and a lot of reading in this game. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but if you enjoy reading a mystery story, you're going to absolutely love Hotel Dusk. And then there's a sequel that never came out over here in the States, but it's playable on the DS if you import it. Last Window, this is more continuation of Hotel Dusk, more Kyle Hyde. An amazingly written story, not for everyone, but if you enjoy reading and solving mysteries, you're going to love the Hotel Dusk games. And then their final game before going bankrupt. This is Again, and it got pretty bad reviews, and some people love it or hate it. I thought it was a fantastic game. Once again, hold it like a book, the DS, and you're solving a serial killer. You're on the tail of a serial killer, mimicking murders that took place 19 years ago, and you're a detective, and you can use your powers to kind of recreate crime scenes and piece together what happened. I became enamored with this game. Really good stuff. Broken Sword is a really cool adventure game mixed with point and click elements, lots of puzzle solving, great production values here in the DS. There's a Wii version of this as well with full voice acting, but for a handheld version, this definitely fits the bill. Great puzzle solving and use of the DS and the touchscreen. Ghost Trick is done by the Ace Attorney guys, and this has you animating a dead corpse and using his corpse to kind of possess items in the backgrounds and puzzle solve your way through levels. I thought this was a really cool twist on the formula, and once again, great use of the DS touchscreen, and puzzle solving fans definitely take a look at Ghost Trick. Trauma Center games are definitely one of a kind. On the DS back then I had played nothing like these. Playing as a doctor, performing these intricate surgeries via the touchscreen and stylus. Intense, very difficult, and it just had my hands like covered in sweat, performing these intricate operations, making these incisions and stitching as the time is going out. A cool storyline goes on in the background, some anime style characters bring the story to life, and if you ever wanted to try your hand at being a doctor without killing someone, this is your best bet. The final games I own for the DS that are kind of like the visual novel touchscreen focused games. Insecticide is a combination of an action game mixed with the visual novel early style PC choices and different dialogue responses, and I believe this is by some of the guys that worked on some of those old school PC point and click games. Mix that with an action game where it takes place in a world populated by bugs. Everybody's a bug in this game, and it's a detective story. Really cool, pretty ambitious. Lux Pain is one that I picked up not too long ago. I haven't had a chance to get too much into this. It's kind of like a disease that's outspread, and you have to use the touchscreen to identify viruses in different people. Seems pretty cool. Comes with a nice little deluxe package here with an art book. Sprung was one of the early launch games, and I think I got this for my wife at the time. It's kind of like a dating simulator where you pick your responses and try to flirt with girls or a guy if you choose, and win a date on this ski resort full of love. Next up, we've got some Sonic love on the DS, and Ivy the Kiwi is appropriate to be grouped with these because this is from the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog. A really cool kind of puzzle platforming game where you use the stylus and the touchscreen to kind of draw these little vines that can be stretched and pulled, manipulated to get Kiwi through the levels. It's pretty challenging, and I found the gameplay hook to be kind of one-dimensional, but still a lot of fun. Sonic Rush mimics the original Genesis games, probably the closest it's been to that. I enjoy this game more than Sonic 4 download games. They're using the dual screen setup of the DS to make some pretty big levels. The sense of speed is good, and the platforming, spot on. I do need to get Sonic Rush Adventure. I had that, and I think I sold it or lost it or something, but this one right here is a RPG from BioWare, and that had enough to get me really excited because BioWare does some amazing work in RPGs. But this one didn't really measure up to my high expectations for it. I guess it's serviceable, and there's a lot of fan service with the old characters and whatnot, but I thought the battle system wasn't the best, and the overall world exploration wasn't the best, but maybe I need to go back and play it because it's been a long time. But for what I played, I don't remember liking this all that much, which is a shame. Electroplankton is a one of a kind, and I say game, but I use that term loosely. This is more of a piece of art, an interactive music sampler where you can manipulate different sounds and string together different music pieces using the touchscreen. This was available only on the Nintendo website for a limited time back in like 2006, I believe, but the style of music in this is very soothing and atmospheric and very relaxing. I had a lot of fun interacting with the different musical tracks in this. Really cool stuff if you're into music and more experimental games. If you're a fan of role-playing games, this next section of the video is for you because we've got a ton of RPGs to get through, so I'm going to try to go through as quickly as possible. This is the complete line of Dragon Quest games on the DS. You guys know the series by now. As traditional as it gets in terms of pure RPG bliss, these games have amazing stories, music, overworlds, enemies, very iconic series, with the ninth being exclusive to the DS, a very massive multiplayer RPG that didn't disappoint. It lived up to all expectations. 5 being my personal favorite. Dragon Quest is amazing. The complete opposite end of the spectrum, Lunar Dragon Song is very far from amazing. One of, if not the biggest disappointment for me ever. A new game in the Lunar series was met with just complete and utter anger. This was not a good game in any way, shape, or form. Lost Magic was one that I was really looking forward to early on in the system's life. I thought that the concept of drawing out spells on the bottom screen and casting spells by drawing different runes would work really well. Not so much when you've got a bombardment of enemies closing in on you and you're fumbling because you didn't get the little rune drawn properly. It can be kind of frustrating, but the concept of it's pretty cool. Chrono Trigger is an absolute masterpiece, a great port of the SNES classic RPG. Some Final Fantasy love on the DS. 3 and 4. 4 is completely redone with the 3D engine. 3 is appearing for the first time. The company that worked on these two really worked some magic on the DS because the graphical engines are very impressive, great music, Final Fantasy that you know and love on the DS. And here we have a new entry, the 4 Heroes of Light. This is a really cool, like old school, very primitive in terms of game design, really cool hand-drawn, like almost watercolor graphics, and this is an entry in this series that is more along the lines of like Crystal Chronicles, the multiplayer action RPG. I really enjoyed this one. Next up we've got a row of RPGs here. Nostalgia, just as the name implies, a very nostalgic trip into yesteryear back in like 16-bit RPGs. Doesn't do anything outrageously or crazily new, but it does everything very solid. There's some cool airships you can fly around in. Black Sigil is kind of a Chrono Trigger clone at its core. Battle system was clearly inspired by Chrono Trigger, but it does its own thing, and it's from a Canadian studio, oddly enough, but it looks just like the old JRPGs you remember. Sands of Destruction I thought was a very misunderstood game. A lot of reviewers kind of shit on it, but I thought the world it created and characters was very cool. The Beastmen and the regular people fighting for supremacy of the world, really cool. Good storyline. Magical Star Sign was just okay for me. It did some things well. I liked the look of some of the environments and the towns were cool, but overall it just kind of was lacking for me a little bit. Definitely not bad though. And Golden Sun is the follow-up to one of my favorite RPG series on the Game Boy Advance. I don't think this really measured up to the high expectations I had for it, but then again, the first two were so revolutionary in the Game Boy Advance that I don't know that this ever could, but still a seriously in-depth game, not as difficult as the earlier entries, but a lot of fun. Some of my absolute favorite RPGs are right here in front of you. Avalon Code is done by the same studio that did Final Fantasy 3 and 4 ports, and they once again work magic on the DS. This is a really cool, creative game where it's like the world is ending, kind of the Noah's Ark concept where you need to capture one of everything still on this earth into a book, and you can use this book to kind of tweak and rewrite the code using the touchscreen and pull out different attributes and create new items using this book, and gameplay is rock solid. A lot of puzzle solving in some of the dungeons kind of turned me off, but as a concept, very fresh and original. Luminous Arc 1 and 2, I've talked about both these games in my Stella Glow kind of mini review. Strategy RPG action done correctly. I absolutely loved the concept of like witches and doing battle with the different characters. I thought this was a great series. Infinite Space is one of the most epic handheld RPGs you will ever play. This was just so well put together from Platinum Games. Great battle system, great storyline. If all handheld RPGs could be half as good as this, I'd never play a console again. And Radiant Historia, one of my, in my top 5 favorite RPGs on a handheld of all time. This is approaching near perfect kind of Lunar levels of greatness. Lunar on the Sega CD being my favorite RPG of all time, but Radiant Historia uses the time traveling theme mechanic and builds around that into something epic that you cannot stop playing until you are done. I couldn't stop Radiant Historia once I started. All top-notch DS games right here. Next up, we've got some more favorites of mine. Solo to Robo being the follow-up to Tail Concerto on the PS1. This is an action RPG where you play as a dog, and I wasn't too sure how I'd like that, but it comes together so well. Pre-rendered backgrounds are stunning on the DS on this one. Really cool flight elements. A great overall, more of an action game than an RPG. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey just might be my favorite SMT game, and I think that's due to the really cool setting this takes place in. It's down in the Arctic, and it's all tundra, frozen wasteland. All of the demon fusing and recruiting, and getting new demons and having them fight side by side. An amazing SMT game for sure. Contact is a really cool game that really uses the DS to its fullest potential. On the top screen, you've kind of got the 8-bit retro-style professor helping you out. On the bottom screen, a more modern look, collecting stickers, I believe. The combat's a little different, but it's definitely something very unique. It's from, I believe, Grasshopper, so they always make kind of odd games, but Contact really works well. Super Robo, Tizen, OG, Endless Frontier. Kind of the precursor to the Project Cross Zone games on the 3DS. So if you played that, you know what to expect in the battle system. Take that battle system and make it part of an actual RPG and not just like a strategy RPG, and you've got a good idea what to expect in this. Really cool stuff. I really enjoyed this game. Unfortunately, it's getting kind of pricey these days. I've got the box and the soundtrack somewhere around here. A new Lufia game. A great series, and this is a great entry on the DS. Lots of cool puzzles in this one as well. And great graphics and music. Lufia remains one of the classics. The last batch of RPGs, we have Rondo of Swords, which I just recently picked up from the flea market. Haven't had a chance to try it out. Suikoden Tierkris is a really cool entry in the series. I haven't really played much of the PS1 games, but I really enjoyed this one. That's one series that everybody's on my ass about. I've got to play the Suikoden games. This one right here is a very dark Valkyrie profile, a take on that series. A strategy RPG where it has you killing party members, and these deaths affect the storyline, and it's really, really cool stuff. I haven't played this one in a while, but I just remember being shocked by the story when I first tried it out. Now, if you've noticed anything odd about this game, I'll give you a second to guess. Any takers, guesses? I haven't revealed one Nintendo game in this whole batch of games, and that's due to the fact that back then, I just wasn't into playing like Nintendo characters and Nintendo franchises. I wanted point and click, I wanted adventure, I wanted RPGs. I just didn't really want to play any Nintendo games on a handheld. I had consoles for that. I just wasn't into it, but recently I've gone back and picked up some of the games that I missed that are pretty cheap, and it's Nintendo, so you know it's quality. Star Fox Command, maybe I take that back. This is okay. I don't know why they have to mess with the Star Fox formula. It works just fine in like Star Fox 64 and the 3D remake on the 3DS, but this is another attempt at adding like a strategy element to the game. I just didn't think this worked very well. Metroid Prime Pinball is an exact opposite. I absolutely love Metroid Prime Pinball. I think this formula works very well. I would love to see a 3D version of this on the 3DS with all new tables. Metroid lends itself very well to pinball action. A great game. A couple of games in the Kirby series. Superstar Ultra, I believe, is like a collection of a bunch of games onto one, and Mass Attack, which kind of uses a kind of like a Pikmin style approach, using the touchscreen and stylus to control a bunch of Kirbys at once. I do have Squeak Squad. Zach is currently borrowing that, playing Squeak Squad. It's his favorite in the series. Wario Master of Disguise. Seems like a pretty solid platformer using the touchscreen and stylus. Haven't had too much of a chance to get into this one. Metroid Prime Hunters was one of the early announcements for the system. I remember playing the demo using that little like thumb pad that went over your thumb, and you used that on the touchscreen early on. This is cool. A lot of people are really pissed off about the new Metroid Prime Federation Force or whatever, but if you look back, this wasn't so bad. So I'm looking forward to playing the new one and jumping online and playing. Legendary Starfy. I guess this is like a long-running series in Japan, and we've just never got any entries over here, but very reminiscent in terms of like Kirby and its tone and kind of difficulty, although this is pretty easy. He's still a really cool character I'd like to see more of. Finally, Super Princess Peach. This is cool to see Peach get her own starring role in the spotlight. Playing with her different emotions on the touchscreen it's not bad. It's a good solid platformer. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at my DS collection. It really is a powerhouse of a handheld machine. The games on it stand the test of time for me. I always have fun going back and performing surgeries or playing some Lost in Blue and trying to survive the island, or playing a touchscreen light gun game. The Ace Attorney games, the list goes on and on of amazing games that are only possible on this system due to the touchscreen and the dual screens. A lot of people were thinking that this was going to fail, and even Nintendo themselves kind of said, you know what, the DS is not replacing the Game Boy brand, it's just kind of a third pillar. It'll be the home console, the Game Boy line, and the DS, and we all know what happened. The DS became one of the best-selling consoles ever, handheld, and it kind of bumped the Game Boy off there, so it wasn't the third pillar, but the replacement after all. But I think that the DS paved the way for the Wii, that kind of experimental approach at trying something new. They saw how successful the DS was and implemented that into the Wii. Unfortunately, we all see that lightning rarely strikes twice, and the Wii U is a different story, but the DS is a definite must-own for handheld gamers. I love the system, I'll never part with it, and I still have some titles that I want to pick up because I'm still missing a few, but the library is extensive, and for the most part it's affordable outside of a few RPGs and such. But I thank you guys for watching. Games of War is nothing without you.